All right, welcome back, everyone. Today, President Bola Tinubu marks 2 years as president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Now, he's also the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. The president ran on what he captioned renewed hope agenda, and that covers health, economy, agriculture, power, and education, amongst other sectors. 2 years on, how well has the president achieved his mandate and fulfilled his promises to Nigerians? Tonight, I'm being joined by an APC chieftain. He is Adewale. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's talk about this because a lot of people are reacting. Different Ayodele Adewale, thank you so much. I just wanted to get that correctly. So a lot of people are reacting to the president 2 years in office. The president has given his speech highlighting his different achievements in office. But I wanted to particularly speak to the opposition political parties because you are an APC chieftain. The presidential candidate of the PDP in the last election, Atiku, has reacted. The coalition of united political parties have reacted. PDP itself has reacted. ADC have reacted. And they all said the same thing. They condemned the APC-led administration. And they are citing the biting economic hardships. How do you react to that?
Well, you shouldn't expect less from an opposition party. They need to put out some words in order to get some level of attention. But it saddens my heart that Mr. Atiku Abubakar could come out to say whatever he has said, based on the fact that he had governed this country with his president for 8 years. So whatever he had said should have been corrected many years before now. And if that was done, I don't think the president now will be working so hard in reviving the dead economy that they left behind.
I saw a bit of his speech. What he's insinuating is that this presidency has taken Nigerians way backwards, before they came in, and they have undone some of what he calls the achievement of the PDP-led governments over the years.
I don't really get you. You have to be specific about those key points that he mentioned.
He just talked about the president's economic policies. He said they have set Nigeria backwards, especially when it comes to the fuel subsidy removal, and he said it was improperly implemented.
That is a lie from the pit of hell. The fuel subsidy removal is one of the best things that happened to this country. And it has helped the country to save more money, and it has put more money in the pocket of the state and of the local government to administer good governance to the people across board. During their time, they could not account for the quantum of fuel that was being said to have been distributed all across the country. It is on record that people were falsifying records in order to get payment from the federal government, and many of these things were not seen. It's on record that trucks were moving out of the country unabatedly to so many African countries that borders around Nigeria, and this fuel were not actually getting to Nigerians. It's on record that bad fuel were being dispensed from various pumps at various petrol stations, thereby destroying the engines of many of these equipments that we use in this country. And like I said, if they have done it well, nobody will be crying or shouting about such matters. It's on record that they could not even revive refineries to be up and going and even attract the kind of support that local investors like Mr. Dangote got during the APC administration, to the extent that the biggest refinery in the world is being situated here in Lagos, Nigeria. And that has also created competition, between the NNPC and the private sector in order to push down the cost of petroleum product in this country. So people like that should not be listened to. For me, it's a mere distraction from the objective, and the president is undaunted. His focus is very key to redeveloping the Nigerian economy for the common good of all Nigerians.
When you say push down the cost of petroleum price, that's pushed down in terms of the price that it was when the president removed fuel subsidy. not the price that we're coming from, and that's relative. Nigerians are talking about the price that we're coming from, and not the, at some point it was almost 1,300, and then it now is maybe 880 per liter. But relatively to where we're coming from, it's still a lot.
Relatively to where we're coming from, government was paying a lot in order to hinge that price at a certain level. And such payment was also affecting a lot of sundry matters of development in this country. It got to a state where the country's economy was in dire straits, was almost on its knees. The government was going out borrowing in order to pay staff salaries. No government could continue at that. But what you have right now is the true cost of this product. And when you also compare it to the pump price of the product in other countries, African countries, European countries, you still see that our cost is lower. But the president is also working more in also trying to bring in alternative sources of energy in order to take away a lot of dependency on the hydrocarbon energy source in order to also push down the price. And if you look globally, right, the cost is also due to global costing and all of these things. But like I said, more companies are coming up in order to provide such services, and the more competition we have, the more the price of crude oil comes down globally, the less cost we'll be paying in this country.
We're also seeing that chorus of discontent from Nigerians as well. Doesn't that also suggest that perhaps they have not started seeing the gains of the renewed hope agenda?
They are seeing the gains. They are seeing the gains. Yes, there is work in progress. It's not yet Uhuru. But for us to say they are not seeing the gains, then we are not being truthful to ourselves. A lot of these safe funds have gone into infrastructure. The money have gone into the NEL funds that is providing funds for students to now go to school without them bothering anybody. As long as you can access the fund, you'll be able to sponsor yourself through school. Even if you're an orphan, you'll be able to do that. Farmers are getting support. Cocoa farmers right now in Nigeria are more than happy than where they were coming from, right? A lot of nostalgia, big projects are coming up and all of those things. Many have been commissioned, right? And so many work in progress. So for people to say that they are not seeing anything, then we need to look deeper into whatever claims they are putting forward. But like I said, it is not Uhuru yet, right? It's work in progress. The man is just 2 years in office. If you measure the quantum of development, achievement he has been able to gain in 2 years, 24 months, compare it to successive administration that had access to more funds than he ever had, you will see that he towers above all of them.
The immediate gains for so many Nigerians will be the corresponding reduction in food prices, and that's for them a major problem, where if you cannot eat 3 meals, and not maybe 2 even in a day, or the one meal that you're able to eat doesn't look good because you do not have enough money to make something that is substantial, that for them it's not an immediate gain. A lot of people don't have cars, so yeah, infrastructure is good, but for them is that reduction in food prices.
Madam, I smiled when you were putting up your narrative. I go to the market, right? I don't send people to the market. I go to Yanoba market, right? I order food from Jos. I also patronize them at Mile 12. So it depends on where you're shopping, right? Where you're getting this food, from. If you're buying from a market where you're cutting away the middlemen, or you're cutting away people who are hiking the price, I can tell you very well that you can still buy food, right, at a low cost that can take care of a middle or low earning family.
And what's the idea of low cost? Because
I'll give you an idea. I'll give you an idea, right? The APC chairman, Pastor Ayodele's wife, passed on recently. I was going there to commiserate with the family, and I got to Yanoba, right? The new bypass to the bridge, and I saw people selling vegetables, spinach. And I decided to ask the people selling. And I saw the large amount of spinach. And she told me that it's 800 naira. I had to remove my glasses in disbelief. right? I didn't go to the farmer. I met the lady, and I said, okay, can I buy 1,300? She sold it for me. It was so much. I got home, I showed it to my wife and my mom, right? They were amazed. I even saw potatoes, because I love potatoes.
And you think that that's the norm? Or that's just
that
particular case is an outlier when you look at other situations?
That is why I said it depends on where you're buying from. There's a market in Festac Town, right? It's called Agboju Market. I always engage them, I buy from them. And I always tell them that why is it that your price is quite high when you just cross the express road towards Agboju, going to Paco, their prices are low. So it depends on where you're buying from. Some people arbitrarily will increase the price because of the demographic of people that they believe have deep pockets, right? But if you can take the extra pain to go to a market where you can get this food at a ready direct cost, you will see that prices change in accordance to geographical placing.
So when you paint the picture of prices, whether for petrol or whether for food, you will say there is a reduction compared to when this administration first took office, when that policy of the fuel subsidy removal was announced. Everything skyrocketed, and that's fine. Petrol prices also skyrocketed, and so there was increase. And compared to that time, we've seen a reduction. But my comparison would be where we are coming from previous administrations and not from when this administration took office. So when Nigerians are talking about corresponding reduction in prices of commodities, they are comparing not with 2 years ago, they're comparing perhaps maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Madam, which one would you prefer? An economy that is driven by magic or an economy that is driven by reality? The social reality is that the economy right now is competitive, right? Where we're coming from is a state where the economy itself was being tied towards a magical sensation, right? That paved the way for a lot of corruption, that opened the gap, right, for monies to just flow away. Those gaps have been closed, right? The subsidy has been removed. The subsidy has been put into other areas that are more productive to the Nigerian economy. Within 2 years, you've seen a lot of road infrastructure come up, right? Within 2 years, you've seen more money is going to local government, more money is going to state government that should also catalyze development, right? You've seen more money going to security, money is going to education, money going to health. You just read not too long ago that the Federal Ministry of Health has embarked on a rehabilitation of public health centers in order to sustain the development of health provision in the country. We couldn't do that so many years ago and all of that. The president just paid off the World Bank loan, and so many other loans have been paid off. The foreign reserve has increased, and so many other things are coming up. We couldn't do that before. We were borrowing money to pay staff salaries, right? Give the man another 24 months and see whether the pump price of fuel will not go below 600 naira. Gradually, all of these things will cascade down when we become a productive nation. Nigeria is moving fastly towards becoming a productive nation, not a consuming nation that is dependent on several other importations, as we have seen in the time past. Leakages are being blocked, unlike before, where leakages were just all over the place. The customs are bringing more monies to the table. The FIRS are bringing more monies to the table. Other sources apart from the hydrocarbon are bringing more money to the center in order for our development. So I will employ all Nigerians to be more watchful, put hands on the plow, support the administration, put the administration on their toes, provide more information on areas that need to be bettered on. And let's move the country together.
All right, so we're going to go on a break because you mentioned two things that I would like us to talk about. One of them is the issue of corruption, and the leakages have been blocked. And then the other one is the issues around debt servicing and loan repayments, especially the one from the IMF. But we'll take a break now, and when Politics Tonight returns, we'll have more of this conversation. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, everyone. You're watching Politics Tonight. We've been reviewing the president's 2 years in office. We've been talking about the economy, some of the gains made, and if Nigerians think that these are actually gains and what it means for them. We've been speaking with an APC chieftain, Ayodele Adewale. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
So just before that break, you mentioned blocking leakages, and the president also alluded to that when he was talking about the foreign exchange windows. He said, and I just want to quote what he said. He said the corruption reading multiple foreign exchange windows. He used the word corruption reading. But for a lot of people, regrettably, the subsidy scammers and the what's it called now, the foreign exchange scammers have not been arrested. We've seen during that time, we saw, was it the DSS or the EFCC go to some places, Bureau de Change, you know, and shut some of them down. But we've not seen any prosecution of any of those individuals. People will feel like, look, perhaps we're dealing with the symptoms and not actually the root causes of where we are. Because again, the Naira is back to 1,600. Against the dollar.
Madam, the justice mill might be slow, right? It doesn't mean that people have not been taken to the law court for persecution, right? Recently, the EFCC was able to persecute the former CBN governor, and those 700 and something buildings were gotten back. It's on record that this present EFCC headman has been able to achieve a lot of persecution and gotten so many funds back and all of that. So it will be foolhardy for anybody to say that there's no persecution going on. And you know, when in democratic space, yes, you want to move very fast, right? Within the table of the judicial people there, their table is also very full. That's why we're calling for more judges and a special court, right, to focus on these matters and dispense justice very quickly. I think it was during this week or last week, 2 individuals were persecuted and sentenced for getting earnings from corrupt practices on these fuel subsidy issues and all of that. And these are part of what the gains of the anti-corruption crusade of the present administration has been able to gain. So every day we watch TV, we see this crime being busted and all. Don't forget that we have a mammoth situation of corruption in our system. So 2 years will not be enough for you to clear all of the rot. But again, they've tried a lot.
But have they given, you know, any signal at all that fighting corruption is a major agenda for this administration? Because it will seem like recovery it's more important than, you know, persecution.
Recovery is part of persecution. First you recover. When you recover, the case is still in court. You cannot leap beyond the judicial system, right? It will take time, right, in order to finish the process. Remember, when you go there, they go to appeal, they go to Supreme, and all of these things. This thing takes time, right? But the major thing is that whatever they've taken away, we're getting it back. We're not slapping them on the wrist. You still have to face the music, right? The music might be slow, but definitely you will face the music.
All right, so let's talk about the loan repayment and debt servicing. I just want to read a few figures. President Tinubu inherited a debt portfolio of about 87.38 trillion naira. That was in June 2023. Now it is, in December 2024, it was as high as 144.67 trillion naira. And that was a figure that was also released by the Debt Management Office. Now, the external borrowing plan for 2025 and 2026 that the president just sent, you would see that the president wants to borrow as much as $21.5 billion. There is also a 65 million naira, another $1.5 billion rather. I mean, yes, we have succeeded in repaying the IMF loan, but our debt burden has increased greatly under this administration as well.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You see, it's part of development, it's part of the economy, right? You clear off the loan, right? You get some financial support as loan in order to plow it into things that are more beneficial in order to create resources and provide for your people. You don't just take loans to something that is not increasing your economy. If you take it to the America or you take it to Canada or the UK, if you look at their their loan profile and all of these things, you can say it's Herculean. But when you look at it, in a very microscopic context, you look at how or where they are deploying these funds to, these are areas that is opening more avenue to create more funds in order to clear off the funds that have gone into such use, right? What we met there were loans that are not productive. Look at the issue of the Air Nigeria, that scandal that happened, right? Somebody go to Ethiopia, painted an aircraft and brought it here, taking so many funds into it as loan and all whatnot. Look at the development in Abuja, right? Some loans were gotten, put into fictitious projects that never happened. In the 2 years of the present administration, President Tinubu was able to headhunt Mr. Wike, brought him there. Look at the mammoth.
But are you not taking us back to the issue of the fighting corruption? Because you mentioned the issue of the Air Nigeria, and then some projects that never even existed, yes. But where contracts were given out. I mean, at this point, one would imagine that those cases will be prosecuted. I know that the one for, I think it was Hadi Sirika, who had been invited a couple of times by the EFCC. One would have imagined that some of these contractors as well will be facing prosecution.
There's separation of powers. The president cannot go to the judiciary and stifle them to, hasten or fasting whatever processes they have. That is why they are calling for special courts to face this matter. So I think the question be thrown to the judiciary, perhaps the Chief Justice and all of that, to create special courts, special processes, and focus on this matter to make it more speedy, right? The president's jurisdiction is basically to harmonize the country, right? Provide security, provide opportunities, and all of that. So also the lawmakers.
The judiciary can only preside over cases that are before them. If
the cases are before them. The cases are before them, because I watch it on your channel, right? I watch it when they took the man, the former aviation minister, to court. I think the daughter or the brother or the siblings, they took them to court. So the cases are there. So it is for you now to beam your cameras there.
That I mentioned that particular one, yes, we are aware, but you also mentioned the one of the contractors, fictitious contracts being given.
Yeah.
We haven't seen...
like
again,
which one?
Anyone. You mentioned contractors, cases of contractors.
Yes.
So I am wondering, if such a situation happened, I mean, by now we should hear that contractors have been arrested and been charged to court.
Before the judiciary. There's separation of powers, right? You can't hold the president on that. No, you can't. That is why I said that question and that energy be channeled to the judiciary, right? You go ask them, why is it that slow, right? And perhaps they'll give you information in order to answer your questions. And that is why I said a lot of people are advocating for special court, right, on corruptive or corruption matters in order to dispense of it, so that it does not drag with other civil matters in the judicial system.
I want to move on to another sector, but just before I move, security, which a lot of, may also gain a lot of attention recently. But would you say that under this administration, in terms of our economy, that we're heading, in the right direction, and that perhaps maybe in short term we will see some level of gains that would trickle down to the table, because that's what matters to Nigerians, their table, to the table of Nigerians?
At the APC summit that took place last week, the security advisor, Mr. Nuhu Ribadu, came out to reel out his scorecard. And there we saw the milestone, the gains that they've been able to achieve. We saw the numbers, right, of matters that have been brought out. I'm careful with words now, and all of that. And we saw that they really made progress compared to where we met it and all. We saw the amount that has been expended in procuring equipment.
I am even talking about economic gains. I will get to security in just a moment.
You mentioned security.
Yes, I said I would get there. I said I would get there in just a moment. But that the economic, that we're heading in the right direction when it comes to our economy.
Of course, there's careful planning, right? There's careful planning, good foundation for the economy that is leading us somewhere. You don't build an iconic tower of about 300-story building on a mere foundation, right? The foundation is rock solid. It's being tailored well. We're creating more funds, more sources of funds, right, in order to push the Nigerian economy forward. right? We're not creating an Eri Houdini kind of economic system. We're creating a pragmatic, realistic, focus-driven economic system. It might look a bit not understood by some people, but the economic analysts and realists do see that this is an economy that is going very well. For the very first time, we are seeing the private sector come to construct roads. I'll give you an example. The Benin-Asaba Road is a private sector, driven project. Did you ever see that in the past? People are now bringing their fund forward in order to invest in the infrastructure of this country. If the economy wasn't good enough, I don't think anybody would want to take up such challenge, knowing fully well that something could happen to their fund in the nearest future.
Right, so let's touch on the economy. The president, the security rather. The president mentioned that with the success achieved, and I'm quoting him, farmers are back tilling the land to feed us. Highways hitherto dangerous for travelers have become safer. Does that match the reality on ground when you look at the recent attacks, for example, in Borno State? We've seen the one in Plateau, and then Benue State. There was a case of, we've seen cases of people who were plying the road, either they were kidnapped or probably just gone down. A bus recently, stepped on an IED, and then 2 passengers died on the spot.
The security agencies are not resting on their oars. Every day they are working hard to make sure that the place is safe. About 2 days ago, a president that succeeded me at the student union, while we were in the university, his name is Karl Marx. Karl Marx succeeded me. And he told me that, Mr. President, that he's going to Zamfara to buy rams. And I was scared. Truth be told, I was scared. Because I've gone through Zaria to Funtua, to Talata Mafara, all the way to Sokoto before, right? And I know that area. And that was as far back as 2001. And he sent me a video, right? He was bringing his ram to Lagos. And I'm like, whoa. So the place is safe. It's not totally safe, but for Karl Marx to leave Lagos, to go to Zamfara by himself to buy ram, it always showed me something that the security operatives are working. And I can show you the video right here, because I was scared. I've been listening to so many things around and watching the social media, but for him to have gone there, it only presupposes that the place is near safe. And I use the word near safe so that I, will be very realistic about what is on ground. But again, it's work in progress. Everybody have to walk the talk. And we've seen the amount of energy that the National Security Advisor and the Minister for Defense are put into that area. We've seen a lot of issues neutralized in that area in order to create that safe environment. And we've seen the governors of those enclaves come out to show us investors that have come to invest in their area and all of these things, from mining to agriculture to real estate to even road projects and all of these things. So we are not saying that everything is totally ended, but we're saying that it's not yet Uhuru. Work is in progress. We've gone very far, better than where we met it. And by the time the president is hitting his 4 years in this first phase of administration, before he moves to the second 4 years, God willing, we would have cleared all of this.
And we've also seen some level of, maybe anger or outburst from some northern governors who have also called on the security agencies to change their strategy. For a lot of people, especially those in the north and the stakeholders there, it's been a roller coaster of gains and reversals, gains almost as though we're not able to consolidate on the gains that we've made. We hear that, bandit leaders have been killed, they have been arrested, and it looks good, we've made gains, and then it looks peaceful at some point, and then we see this massive attacks all over again. And one wonders, at what point are we going to have consistency in gains and not setbacks as we have sometimes?
We must continue to walk the talk. We must continue to be very vigilant. We must improve on security policing. And that takes us back to the governors, right? They must make sure that they quickly activate the state policing structure, right? If we have state police in every state in this country, the effort of the federal government will not be that dissipated.
But is that up to the governors? It's not.
It is up to the governors.
How is it up to the governors?
Now listen, listen. We are running a federalistic system of government, right? The Buhari administration, before they left, they did a very wonderful work by making sure that state government can now have their policing system, right?
Well,
the issue is still ongoing, right? The governors must fast track these things. They have to fast track it. Lagos is very ready for that, right? They've created their neighborhood watch. The neighborhood watch can transmute and become a state policing structure. The Lagos state government, through the ingenuity of the Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration while he was governor, created the Security Trust Fund that can sustain the provision and systemic activity of security in Lagos. The Amotekun structure is in the southwest. And I think the governors must take it on, the challenge from there.
But there's also a limit to the kind of weapons that they can use, because they are not legally and officially recognized. And so it takes me back to one of the promises of this president before he took office. He talked so much about restructuring and devolution of powers, but that's taken a long time to happen. Almost as though that is no longer an issue of interest, for the president.
No. It's a question of law, right? The president has put up policies, right? Those policies must be keyed into. If you're talking about the hardware, weapons, and all of these things, right? It's a question of law. The governors must come together, sponsor a bill, right? State the kind of weapon that they want for their police to be handling, and the National Assembly will activate it. You understand? You have to be smart about these issues. You don't have to just wait and hope that something manner will come from somewhere. The governors must take action. They must take action right now. And if those actions are taken, voila, the state policing thing will happen. So it's a question of law.
I also, because we like to speak with data, I just wanted to also read out a report by Amnesty International on Thursday that at least 10,217 people have been killed in attacks by gunmen in 2 years since the president took office. How would you respond to that?
I would say you have to verify those figures. I'm not saying people have not been killed, right? And I deeply commiserate with the families of those who have been killed, right? But when you get figures from any organization, you as journalists must not just reel out these figures, but you must do an investigative thing towards it. For whatever things you hear, do a fact check in order to get to the logical conclusion.
You don't think that the figures are even close to that at all?
It's not my thinking now. I don't want to contravene any figure because it's a question of life, right? It's a question of life, and I would not want to do that. But I'm only saying that whatever any organization brings to you as figure, it could be more, it could be less. But do fact check, right, on these figures and use whatever you've gotten in order to engage the government and prefer solutions towards it.
So I want to take you up on two quick issues because of time. One of them is the power sector. We've seen more of grid collapse recently. It's stable now. In the last few months, we haven't heard of any grid collapse, but at some point it was incessant. For people, power sector is one area where they feel like, look, we can resolve that. You have settled maybe 50%, if not more, of their challenges in this country. They can take care of themselves because a lot of businesses have to do with power. But the incessant grid collapse for them was also a bit disturbing. And I wanted to ask you again, electricity tariff was removed at some point, meaning that Nigerians now pay more. Whether the power, or the electricity distribution for them is commensurate, it will depend from area to area because everyone is now in different bands. But I just also want to get your reaction to how you think that this administration has fared when it comes to electricity.
And I put it back to you that you need to fact check what happened. Many of those grid collapse was as a result of sabotage, right? People were going into the thick bushes and shooting down the cables right? That we're taking this power to where it's needed. It was on record on your TV station and many TV stations where we saw the Minister for Mr. Adewale coming to show us what had happened. So there's a lot of sabotage that were recorded in that angle. That is not to say that there should be an overhaul of the total grid system and all of these things. And that is why I'm so happy that Asiwaju I think in 2000, when he brought the idea of having this independent power project, and he engaged Enron as at that time to have a provision for Lagos State. But the same people, Atiku and his boss, refused it as at that time, right? And many years after, the APC administration came in, reworked the Nigerian constitution to the extent now that you have private sector, right? Like Geregu and Mr. Elumelu and so many other people embarking on energy provision. You have the Abia State governor now benefiting from the system that Asiwaju created as far back as 2000, right? And so many people can also come on board. I once again challenge the state government, the state governors, to take charge in this thing, to unbundle their states from the federal grid, so that if you have states providing energy, at least for the industrial areas, let's start with that in order to make funds for us to expand, right? The private sector also come in, it remove the dependency on the national grid and it speed up development. That is the best way to go. The APC government has unbundled it, creating opportunity and the wherewithal for other players to come in. And when you also talk about the grade A, grade B, grade C, yes, there should be a review. I do agree with that. But I will tell you one thing for free. In my own house, I have about 3 sources of energy. I'm more on solar, right? I'm more on solar with the inverter in order to reduce my energy cost. I manage my energy. If I don't have a need for it, I put it off, right? I also pay a minimum of about 50,000 naira because I have 2 meters. I pay 50,000 naira for public power. And that 50,000 naira will last me for about 3 to 4 weeks, right? And all of those things. I spend less now on diesel because I also have my diesel engine, right? I spend less. In fact, I can't remember the last time I used my petrol engine, but that's the last source. Back then, that was the last source. So I was creative enough to look at those approaches.
Well, you also have the means because solar is very expensive.
What makes you think I have the means?
Well, solar is not cheap.
It's careful planning.
How many Nigerians can plan carefully? How many Nigerians can plan carefully with minimum wage?
The banks have also made provision now to support people to procure.
So for somebody who has a family of maybe 2 or 3 earns minimum wage, you think that solar is the first thing on their mind?
2 or 3. I don't want to promote a bank now. I won't give you their name because they're not paying for advert, right? 2 or 3.
So
2 or 3 will go for at least 1 kV to 2 kV.
And I get you,
and they can pay
when
within
you have
24 months.
70,000 naira, you're thinking of your rent, you're thinking of food on the table, you're thinking of fees. I'm not sure that solar is the first thing on your mind. You're also struggling with electricity bills.
There are some solar bulbs that you can put in your room. Like I said, I don't want to put their name again. There's a telco. There's a telco that is also doing that to support the low-income people. I would still say that there are a lot of bills that are. I mean, that money has to go to a lot of areas. Oh, definitely.
I mean, it's very elitist to start talking about solar for a lot of people. They don't have the means. But just before we have very few minutes left. And I wish we could talk about the president's diplomatic strides, but we do not have time. I just wanted to talk about, again, the last statement that Atiku made. And he had talked about how a united front of opposition parties and leaders would work to save the country from the APC's, again, quote, poor governance. He feels that the president has not done enough to win him another election. The APC governors just endorsed the president as a sole candidate for the party. Does the president have enough achievements that if today there was an election, he would win that election?
Madam, I will challenge you to go to rural areas, right? Speak to the farmers. And you see that the farmers in many parts of the country where we don't have bridge insecurity, right, are actually very happy with this administration. Areas where you have some bridge insecurity, some are from clusters, and they are also happy to be growing their foodstuff and selling them. That is not to say that holistically there are no challenges. There are still challenges in some part of the country that there is work in progress, right? But like I said, it depends on where people are actually dealing on. There are some business activities that are really making gains from what is happening here. We don't have time, I would have delved more. In transportation, people are making gains. Even in real estate, some people will rent houses, right? Or rent flats and what have you, and use it for short lets, right? In the cooking business, right? More people are making gains, but that is not to say that we should not do better. The president is walking the talk, is working very hard to improve on the Nigerian economy and make life more comfortable for everybody. He has only spent 2 years, 24 months, and in the last 24 months, this man hardly sleeps and he walks all around the clock.
I'm afraid we do have to leave it there, which will have enough time to also pick on the points you have raised, but thank you so much for your time. APC Chieftain Ayodele Adewale, pleasure to have you all.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that marks the end of today's episode of Politics Tonight. But before we go, let's tell you that the views and reaction of our resource person is his and have no connection with TVC News. And meanwhile, you can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode at 1 a.m. Get in touch with us on social media handles. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and on X at TVC News NG. Use the hashtag Politics Tonight. I am Precious Amayu. Thanks for watching.